Welcome back to Keith's Hot Takes, and on today's show we have a loaded show for you. I'm going to talk about Mount Tabor and Dudley, then I'm going to preview Mount Tabor and Cleveland for the state championship Thursday night, 7 o'clock, and then I'm going to get into recapping the draft, which teams had the best draft, which teams had the worst draft, and which rookie quarterback will be the most successful next year, and what needs to be done to get more HBCU players drafted. So let's get into it, and we're going to start with Sizzling Headlines, so let's get it. So, Mount Tabor and Dudley, what a great game. Very competitive. It was a dogfight. And this game just ultimately came down to Dudley's mishaps on special teams. And they just made too many mistakes to win that game. It started off on the opening kickoff when Colin Smith took the kickoff all the way back, and Dudley just made too many mistakes to win Friday night. It was a great start for Mount Tabor. I had to go back and watch what happened on the kickoff on Game of Inches. Shout out to them for covering the high school sports in the area. They do a great job doing that. But on the NF8 network, the camera, it was just going all over the place. I don't know who was controlling it. They were doing a horrible job with the camera. You would miss the touchdowns because they be at midfield and the guy is scoring, and it's just like, I don't know what they were doing. I'm definitely gonna have to try to go down there and support Mount Tabor Thursday night and Chapel Hill, witness history hopefully. But anyways, Mount Tabor, they battled, they went through a little adversity, being down in the game, and Dudley really dominated the first half, and somehow at halftime Mount Tabor was leading by 3. So I definitely think Mount Tabor, I know their coaching staff will do a great job of shoring up their mistakes, because they made a lot of mistakes yesterday that they can't make next week when it's the state championship. Everything is on the line, because I remember one of the touchdowns that Dudley got, it was like a wheel route to the running back and wasn't nobody on him. I was like, what is going on with Mount Tabor? And Mount Tabor's coach was saying that Dudley, switched up their game plan, because these teams are very familiar with each other. They're conference rivals. Mount Tabor has now beaten Dudley 6 straight times. They never lost to Dudley while they were in conference together from 2017 to 2021, because as we know, Mount Tabor is moving up next year. But anyways, I thought it was very smart of Dudley to, switch up the game plan a little bit, show Tabor some things that they maybe weren't prepared for, and maybe that's why Mount Tabor left the running back open on the wheel route and stuff like that. And basically, whenever you give up a kickoff return like Dudley did to Mount Tabor, somebody crossed the fence, they didn't stick to their assignment. And I remember when I was in high school playing football, whenever we would be on kickoff, our coach would always tell us, don't cross the fence. And basically what that means is, don't go in somebody else's lane. Stick to your responsibilities, stick to what you're supposed to do. Don't try to go do somebody else's job, because when you do that, it always ends up bad and you always end up giving up a kickoff return. So that's what Dudley ultimately did, and Mount Tabor was getting some good kickoff returns, and then Dudley finally made some adjustments, and they didn't give up another one. But to end the first half, Mount Tabor's coach made Dudley re-kick, and me and my dad were like, why are they making them re-kick? That's so stupid. But if you look at it, they were really close to blocking the kick, and it was a penalty on Dudley. I forget what the penalty was, but anyways, they made him re-kick, and then Mount Tabor, you could tell what they were doing, all out block. They were trying to block the kick, maybe set up a field goal before the half. So ultimately they blocked the kick, and they're able to get a 49 yard field goal before halftime, and then they go into halftime 17-14, and then coming out of halftime, they do like a sky kick, just hop it up in the air. Mount Tabor gets the ball, and then they're on like 20-ish yard line. They get it all the way down to the 2-yard line. They score. They get a penalty. I forget what the penalty was. I think it was holding or something like that. And then they don't get no points out of that. So then Dudley comes down. Makai Wall, who's one of their best players, he's electric. He gets 11-yard touchdown on a slant route. And whenever you press, you always have the chance that somebody's gonna run inside on you and get a slant, and they'll be wide open. So if I remember correctly, forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, because the camera camera quality wasn't the best on the Fire Stick broadcast, but it looked like Tabor's best corner, Cullen Smith, who started the game electrically with the kickoff return. It looked like he was on Makai Wall, and he pressed Makai Wall. I guess he thought they were going to do a fade route, but they didn't. They went inside, and I think, if I remember correctly, this is how Dudley scored early in the game on a slant route to Makai Wall. So anyways, they get the touchdown to Makai Wall. Then Dudley botches another snap. Dudley was having problems with their long snapper and their center all night. Snaps would be too high, and on the extra point, he sailed it over. He sailed it over the holder's head, and Makai Wall just threw it out of the back of the end zone. That was crucial because that made the score 20-17. And then Dudley was doing this play all night, and I don't know why Tabor didn't use their instincts and realize whenever Makai Wall is at quarterback, he's not passing the ball, so you can put everybody up on the line. But in the fourth quarter, it was about 9:55 left to go in the fourth quarter. Makai Wall takes a snap. He runs to the right, if I remember correctly, and somebody grabs a hold of his jersey, and then somebody rips the ball out. Tabor gets the ball. That's a huge turning point in the game. Looked like Dudley was about to go up 10, and then Tabor eventually gets the ball, and then they score on their favorite play. They run this play over and over and over again in the game. They do a jet sweep to Lance Patterson. They take the lead. Dudley does drive the ball inside Tabor territory, but their quarterback overthrows the receiver. Tabor picks it, and Tabor is going to their first state championship since 2007, and they'll play Cleveland from Clayton. Cleveland has only been open for 10 years. This is their first state championship appearance. Like I said, Mount Tabor, this is their first appearance since 2007. From what I gauge off looking at a few highlights of Cleveland, they seem like they're very pass heavy. They seem like they're getting a lot of four wide set. So I think Mount Tabor, they'll have to get a lot of pressure on Cleveland's quarterback, because I did see in their really the only game that they got tested in was against Clayton, who they just beat to advance to the state championship game. When Clayton got pressure on their quarterback did not look comfortable, and I think Mount Tabor's got to take note of that and put pressure on them, because when Clayton put pressure on Cleveland's quarterback, he threw an intercept, and they blew a lead in that game. They were up 21-3. Clayton came back, but Cleveland ultimately won the game. But I feel like Mount Tabor has been tested more in the playoffs. Looking at who they played in the playoffs, I feel like Dudley and Weddington is a tougher path to the state championship than anything Cleveland has had on their side. And looking at their schedule, Clayton was 2 times they played Clayton was really the only time that they were tested, because like I said, in the first matchup, Clayton had came back, and so the first time they played, the score was 34-27, and then when they played last Friday, Cleveland pulled away after getting down 14-0. After they got down 14-0, they pretty much dominated the rest of the game. And like I said, Cleveland, they've played Southern Durham, Lee County. Lee County is traditionally a powerhouse. They're not as strong this year, and then they played Clayton again. Looking at Mount Tabor, they play Alexander Central, Weddington, and then Dudley Friday night. So those last 2 games alone, facing Weddington, who was considered the best 3A school in the state, Tabor manhandled them, and then they got a big win over their rival Dudley. So I feel like those 2 wins alone are more stronger than any win that Cleveland has. So I think Mount Tabor's going to win this, and I don't think they'll have much trouble scoring on Cleveland. I think Mount Tabor's got to dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Lance Simpson has been a hellraiser all playoffs long. Came up big again Friday night. They have a defensive MVP. He definitely deserves that trophy because he's been phenomenal all playoffs long. Thinking Mount Tabor's going to win this. I'm thinking 28-14, and they'll get their first ever championship in school history. Go Spartans. And like I said, hopefully I'll be there. It'll be at Keenan Stadium in Chapel Hill. It's about an hour and 30 minutes away. So definitely rooting for them. And good luck to our other triad teams that are competing in the playoffs. East Surrey is facing Tarboro. It's going to be the trilogy, the 3rd straight year they've met in the state championship game. And then we have Reedsville. They're playing Mountain Heritage. And in 4A, we have Grimsley facing Cardinal Gibson. So good luck to all our triad teams. I'll let you know on next week's show if we went 4-0, who all won, who didn't, and we'll get into that next week. So now to the draft, and I'll recap the draft.
Yeah, draft day, Johnny Manziel. 5 years later, how am I the man still?
Shout out to Drake for bringing us into the draft recap. That was Draft Day, which is one of Drake's all-time classic. So first we're going to talk about which teams had the best drafts. This one was really tough because a lot of teams had great drafts, but I'll start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got their quarterback, and although they didn't need a running back, they decided to reunite him with Travis Etienne. So I thought that was cool that they did that. And then in the second round, they got Tyson Campbell. And then they also got Walker Little because you need some protection for your rookie quarterback. So I really liked that draft. And then I moved to the Falcons. I really wasn't sure what they were going to do with their fourth pick. But when I found out that it would be basically impossible for them to move Matt Ryan before his contract is up the next 2 years, it didn't make sense for them to draft a quarterback and have them sitting for 2 years. So I like that they went with Kyle Pitts. And then they started addressing their defense. Some of my favorite pickups that they got were Richie Grant out of UCF. He's a safety, ball hog playmaker. Darren Hall, he's a cornerback out of San Diego State. And probably my most favorite, Avery Williams out of Boise State. Shout out to my Broncos, man. He's a lockdown corner, and he's a special team ace. He can turn punts, kicks, whatever you need. Hopefully they use him on special teams because he's a playmaker. And shout out to John Bate. He got drafted by the Washington football team. I love to see my Broncos getting drafted. Shout out to those guys. I'll move to Cleveland next. I really love their draft. They got Greg Newsome II. He's a cornerback. They'll probably put him on the other side of Denzel Ward. And this Cleveland team, I'm telling you, they're going to be a problem. And I also love their second round pick, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who can really cover. He's a very explosive, very athletic linebacker. So I really love what Cleveland's doing. I think they're really gonna be a problem to deal with in the AFC. And who knows, they may have all the pieces that they need to go ahead and try to bring a Super Bowl to Cleveland. So I really like their draft and really like what they did in the draft. They had a great free agency. Now they had a great draft. So look out for Cleveland in the AFC, like I said. So I'll go ahead and talk about Denver. Unfortunately, they grabbed Patrick Surtain at 9. I wanted my Cowboys to get him. But if you think about it, there's some explosive offenses in their division, and you need a lockdown corner that can deal with some of these explosive offenses. And I also like that they went ahead and got Javonte Williams out of North Carolina. Hard-hitting running back, very physical. I thought Buffalo was going to grab him at the end of the first round. I was surprised that they didn't. I definitely think they'll regret that later. But I really love those picks, and Denver really shored up their defense. Baron Browning out of Ohio State, a really good linebacker. He can also cover tight end. So shout out to Denver. They had a really good draft. I love what Baltimore did with their draft. They got Lamar Jackson, some receivers, Rashard Bateman. They got Tylan Wallace. They also got a guard in Ben Cleveland out of Georgia. He's nasty. He's really going to protect Lamar, and they're going to have some big running lanes. And I also like them picking up Sean Wade, late corner out of Ohio State. And if they play him in the slot, I think he's going to be great. I saw where he struggled when they tried to play him outside. So I know the Ravens will do a great job of utilizing his strengths and not making him do something that he's not good at. Shout out to them. I also want to give a shout out to Panthers. They had a great draft. Let's go ahead and talk about their draft. So the Panthers, they drafted J.C. Horn in the first round. It surprised me that they got him so high, that they picked him so high. But when I started thinking about it, I was like, there's some high-powered offenses in that division. You're going to have to deal with Tampa's high-powered offense with all their weapons, and then you're going to have to deal with the Falcons, whose offense was already explosive, and then they add Kyle Pitts. So good God almighty. I thought they were going to go offensive lineman, get a tackle to protect Sam Darnold, but they were like, nah, we want somebody that can shut somebody down because we have to deal with Tampa twice a year and we have to deal with the Falcons twice a year. So I wasn't surprised that they got J.C. Horn at 8. Another one of my favorite picks that they drafted was Chuba Hubbard, the running back out of Oklahoma State, because I feel like the Panthers are too dependent on Christian McCaffrey on offense, and I just feel like that they're going to run him into the ground. So I love them getting a workhorse like Chuba, who's going to, take the workload off of Christian McCaffrey. And maybe this is a situation where you can have Chuba in the backfield on third down, put McCaffrey in the slot, and have him catching passes. But I think this is going to add some years to Christian McCaffrey's career, and I love this pickup for the Panthers. And I think they had a really great draft. They also drafted Marshall out of LSU, Trimble out of Notre Dame. So they had a really good draft. I think the Panthers are going to be really competitive in a tough division where I think the Bucks are going to be really hard to deal with next year because they bring back OJ Howard. They're bringing back all their starters on both sides of the ball, and they're just going to be a problem to deal with next year because I really don't see a lot of teams being able to deal with them next year just because they have so much talent. And I was surprised that they were able to bring everybody back coming off a Super Bowl because a lot of their guys took discounts to run it back, and hats off to them for doing that. And last, I like what the Jets did. They got Zach Wilson, or they got him a guard, and then they got him a running back. Because what's a rookie quarterback's best friend? Having a running game. So I really think that's going to help them, and I'll be interested to see if Zach Wilson can be their answer, because I don't think that they should have gave up on Sam Darnold. I think they should have just built around him, got him some weapons, got him some talent, got him some help. So we'll see if that works out for them. If I were the Jets, I probably would have took Justin Fields, who I'm going to talk about in a minute. But speaking of Justin Fields, I love what the Bears did in their draft. Drafted Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. He only gave up 2 sacks during his career at Oklahoma State. They drafted Daz Newsome out of North Carolina, a very explosive Turner. He can take the top off the coverage, and I think Chicago is going to be legit next year, and we have to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay. But I think that Bears finally have their quarterback, and I think that's going to be a problem to deal with in the NFC. So we shall see. But those are the teams that I thought had the best draft. Let's talk about the teams that I think had the worst draft. So I think that the Saints, I really didn't like their draft, especially early on. I feel like that they should have got a quarterback in the first round. I was hoping that they would get Kellen Mond, because I don't know if they have the answer at quarterback. Right now they have Taysom Hill on their roster and Jameis Winston. And I guess Jameis Winston is going to be the quarterback. I don't know. But they drafted Ian Book. I don't really know if he's a starter in the NFL. They really reached on their first round pick. I feel like they could have waited till later on in the draft to get him quarterback or get another receiver, because they did lose Emmanuel Sanders to free agency. He's in Buffalo now. So I feel like they could have got something else for that defensive end that they drafted in the first round, because like I said, I feel like he would have been available when they picked again in the second round at number 60. And they got Pete Warner out of Ohio State. He's a really good linebacker. I love that they reached on Peyton Turner in the first round. I think they should have addressed quarterback position in the first round instead of getting a DN, who I'm pretty sure would have still been available in the second round at number 60. So Steelers draft, I feel like waited a little too late to address their offensive line. I love the Najee Harris pickup, but I feel like they should have addressed their line a little earlier, just because you have a great running back in Najee Harris who can do it all, but I'm concerned about toughness of their offensive line. I see they got some picks late. We'll have to see if those guys are the end, but I just feel like they needed to address their offensive line after they got Najee Harris. I don't really think that they did a great job of doing that, but we shall see. To wrap up on this topic, I'm going to talk about my Cowboys draft. I like some of our picks, but I feel like we really reached on most of our picks. So I like the Micah Parsons pick. Besides his off-the-field issues, he says he didn't do it, but I really love that because our defense was atrocious last year. I think Denver would have took him at 9 if they weren't so scared off by the off-the-field issue. Kelvin Joseph, this is another one of those wait-and-see picks. He did hold Devontae Smith without a catch when they played. He's very fast, so I have to wait and see on that pick. I love the D tackle we got out of UCLA. He's fast, high energy, violent. I'm hoping he can shore up the middle of our defense, because we gave up a lot of rush yards last year, and we were really atrocious on this side of the ball. I like the Jabril Cox draft pick in the 4th round, 115. We got to steal, man, because Jabril Cox college, he only gave up 2 touchdowns and he had 8 interceptions, so he could be a late round gem that fell in our lap. So I guess that's one of the positive picks that we had. And I really like the receiver that we got out of Stanford. He can really take the top off the coverage. Maybe can be our 4th receiver behind Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb. We'll have some interesting battles in training camp. So that does it for this segment. Let's talk about which rookie quarterback I think will be most successful next year. Happens there, but I definitely think Justin Fields or Trey Lance will have the most success next year. Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, they both on really bad teams. Trevor Lawrence, Sunshine, I love that pick for Jacksonville. He gives them hope, but I think they're a couple years away from being really competitive. I don't think that they are ready to overtake Tennessee in that division. Or the Colts, because the Colts are going to be good again. Carson Wentz behind that offensive line, I think that'll be really good too. So Jacksonville, they're in a really competitive division at the top of their division. But yeah, I just think they're a couple years away, and the Jets have to wait and see how good Zach Wilson is going to be for them. I like what they did in the draft. Is it going to be enough to compete with Buffalo and New England, who had a good draft? I didn't mention them, but New England had a great draft. It's just so many teams had a great draft. It was hard to mention everybody that had a great draft. So yeah, that's why I didn't say Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson for the Jets, just because they're inheriting bad football teams, and I think they're a couple years away from being competitive. So we shall see. So I think in order for us to get more HBCU athletes drafted in these late rounds, we need better coverage, whether it's ESPN, ESPNU, ESPN3, whatever it is. We need more games on TV so these scouts can see us more. I feel like we need more support from the league. I feel like it's just something that they can do to help us out. And lastly, I feel like our combine needs to be on NFL Network, because they can go cover these pro days. They can come and cover our combine, because it was supposed to be in Miami last year before COVID hit. Then it got canceled, and then our athletes weren't able to showcase their skills. So I think it needs to go back to Miami. That's a better location than UAB, where it was this year in Birmingham. Hopefully we start to see things change before next year's draft, and hopefully more HBCU athletes get picked up, because it's so much talent at HBCUs that deserve to be on NFL rosters. All they need is a chance, and they'll show out and earn them a spot. So shout out to my guy Ruff. He posted last night the HBCU players that have gotten picked up so far. So let me tell you about those guys. So follow Ruff at Timeout Sports on Twitter and Instagram. He does a great job keeping us up to date with all this information. I'm so proud of you, bro. Here are the HBCU players that have been signed so far. Brian Mills, he's a cornerback from North Carolina Central. The Seahawks picked him up. Calvin Ashley, offensive tackle. Florida A&M. Mac McCain, a very good corner out of North Carolina A&T. The Broncos picked him up. He's a dog. He's a ball hog. And he's going to make that roster. I think they just got a steal. And Davis Moore out of Grambling State, the Panthers signed him. He's the offensive lineman. So shout out to all those guys. Congratulations. You got your chance. Go prove to them why they should have drafted you. Many more to come. Elijah Bell, he needs to be on the NFL roster. He can play now. He goes after that ball. You let him get in open space, he's a problem to deal with. And Darius Skinner out of Winston State, he's a ball hawk. He can pick that ball off, and he can change the NFL team right now. All he needs is opportunity. So hopefully our guys starting getting opportunities. And to wrap up, I wanted to say more undrafted free agents have made the Hall of Fame. 17, the number one overall picks, 14. So 17 undrafted free agents have made the Hall of Fame, and only 14 first round picks have made the Hall of Fame. So don't worry about where you go and when you get picked. Just when your name is called, be ready to go and go make a statement. So that does it for today's show. I know on next week's show, I'm going to recap the state championship games, let you know which teams won the state championship, which ones didn't. I have all those scores for you, and I'll recap all those games for you, and much, much more. I'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much.
For me, find me somewhere out in London, you know that's the hideaway.